Baldy, Croc, thanks for having me out here for the golf tournament, Guns Garin Memorial Foundation, the third annual golf tournament, which is impressive again to see what you guys have accomplished because, as a fighter pilot, I don't think you go to school to like figure out how to run a foundation, start a foundation, do these charities. We're going to talk about the foundation, but I kind of want to kick it off because one, we're all FAPEs, first assignment instructor pilots, so we all paid our penance back in the day. But you guys started out at the Air Force Academy, so I'm sorry about that.
Right.
But you guys have kind of followed one another along, more or less, throughout your careers, and then you've landed here in Columbia, South Carolina, flying the Mighty Viper at McIntyre. But you guys, again, also being at McIntyre, became good friends with Guns. I'm going to back it up and just say, will you tell me just a little bit about your background and what led you here to McIntyre?
Sure. So, for me, I've always wanted to be a pilot. I've always wanted to be a fighter pilot. I was one of those guys when you're, kids when you're 6 years old, watch Top Gun, and fell in love with it. My dad always wanted to fly back in the 60s, didn't have the eyes for it, so he kind of passed that along to me. So I pursued it, which is why I went to the Air Force Academy, because I wanted to get a pilot slot, and I wanted to, I thought it was the best path to become a fighter pilot. Then I went to Del Rio, and then I FAPed, which was comical, like to say the least. Timing's everything.
Right place, wrong time.
That's exactly right. No, but it was a lot of fun. I obviously got to meet a lot of great people. That's where I met Croc. When we were FAPes together, we had known each other at the academy, but became good friends there. And then, obviously you compete as a FAPE, as you know, right, to get your assignment, and was fortunate enough to get a Viper slot out of there, and then kind of followed the path in active duty from Del Rio to IFF to Luke for the B course, and then got sent to Korea, and then just kind of long story short, but ended up at McIntyre as a TFI, which is where he actually ended up going as well, and really been there since 2017, and been loving every minute of flying the Viper. So
You probably said a few other acronyms. I call it the TFI. People always like, yeah, what are these acronyms, right? Total Force Integration, but there's active duty, Guard and Reserve. McIntyre is a Guard unit that flies F-16s, but we have active duty pilots that get stationed there. And the Guard is really a vestige of a lot of experience and talent because those guys they've been there for a long time. It's kind of where the corporate knowledge gets maintained, but we send active duty guys there to augment and also learn and glean a lot of. So, spoiler alert, obviously you alluded to the fact that you were a FAPE there, beautiful Del Rio. Where did you go after the B course?
Yeah, so our careers have pretty much mirrored each other. So I went straight to McIntyre after going to the B course, and have been there since, and then since moved back into the reserves, back to where I call home in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
But it was really the cool part about our story is that even when we were FAPEs, we were trying to figure out a way basically to help veterans in need. And so we had done a couple smaller golf tournaments with Michael Thompson, Baldy's brother, who's a PGA golfer. And we're raising money at that time for other nonprofits that were helping in that space. So it was kind of a cool evolution to see as the need came up with the tragedy of Guns, to say, like, we've been helping other foundations do this. Let's just do it ourselves. Like, it's something we're passionate. Yeah, we're passionate about it. Guns was a really good friend to both of us, and so it meant a lot to us, and it's something that we had kind of gotten into earlier, so it seemed like a good fit to start the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of a perfect segue, because I want to talk about Guns, and we can talk about the foundation. Can you tell me a little bit about Guns, his background, and kind of why we're here today?
Sure. So there's a lot of people, we feel like, in the Air Force or the military as a whole who have known Guns. He was that kind of a person. He was well-liked, well-renowned. He started out, he was a Guard baby, so he grew up in the Guard, started out enlisted, and then wanted to be a pilot, so he applied with the unit, basically, to go to pilot training. He did a phenomenal job as an enlisted person, and then went on and did great in pilot training. You still have to perform as a guardsman trying to go to pilot training to get your fighter slot. even though it's kind of you're hired by the unit. But he did really well and came back to the unit and continued to do well, and was just a guy that was well liked by everybody. He, in fact, did so well that the unit decided that that was the person they wanted to send to weapons school from the unit. That's just, born and raised as the guard baby, and they want him back to be kind of continuing on the legacy of what the Swamp Fox, South Carolina Air National Guard unit is all about. And he went and did that and did great at that as well. Came back, and basically taught the squadron, took the squadron, to combat, was essentially our tactical leader, and was probably the ultimate individual who demonstrated credibility and humility at all times. I mean, he was obviously a weapons school graduate. If you know what that is, it's a school for those that are the top 1% of the 1%, right? Top Gun-esque. And but to be able to be that type of a person and be humble is a whole nother thing. And he was always that way. And not only that, I mean, he taught us when we were going through our instructor pilot upgrades in the F-16. We always laughed because we were like, he's the guy who you'd want to hook a sortie with, because he'd teach you what you did wrong, but he'd also be your friend, like, right afterwards. And he was the type of person that could do that, and that's who he was. And you could probably tell a couple more stories about it, but that at the end of the day, when we talk about the foundation and who he was, that's the legacy that we are trying to share with everybody.
Yeah, obviously he's much more than a pilot, but I do think you hit on some points to really pull apart for those who aren't quite familiar. But a weapons officer in a squadron, like, again, it's the top 1% of the 1%, if you will. They're humble. They're humble, approachable, credible. Right. That whole mantra that goes along with it. Not an easy thing to do, but you think of like the commander and the DO of the official leadership in the squadron. The weapons officer is really, in my mind, the guy who's setting the backbone and the tone of how things are going to go and how the squadron is going to fight, what the tactics are going to be. Like, they're the lifeblood. It's a really important person in a squadron, and not everyone gets to do that. So that is just one facet and aspect of his life. But you talked about, did he put you guys both through the IPUG?
He did.
Yeah. So you probably have a gun story or two, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing he was the first person I met when I showed up to McIntyre, and the first thing that really struck me about who he was as a person was he was genuinely interested in who you were as a pilot and as a person. And so that instantly kind of not only it was something I respected in him, but also like garnered a great friendship, And so he was one of those instructors that was more, he was interested in making sure that the rest of the squadron was being taught at a level that one day would make him better than he was. And so he was all about trying to make everyone that he surrounded himself with better. And so, one of the stories that I will never, ever forget is in the middle of combat, like as we're having this huge surge, trying to take out ISIS for the last time, we get this strike that comes down. It's a fairly like complicated strike with GBU-24s, 2,000-pound bombs, and it's pretty complex. And he was going to lead it, and he was taking out a fairly new wingman with him. That's who he was. And so everyone in the squadron at the time was like, dude, like, he is totally going to do this drop, like, single-handedly, and just, like, absolutely, like, rain hate. And this new wingman gets to, like, see it all happen. And so the timing of it got thrown off to where he had to go to the tanker to get gas. And so we're watching this all unfold in the kind of the step area. And he is talking this brand new wingman through probably one of the most complicated strikes that any of us have ever seen while he's on the boom. So he's getting gas, and you can hear him telling this new guy, all right, man, like, make sure you've done X, Y, and Z. Like, you've got it. It's going to be awesome. And he went out and dropped both the bombs, 100% shacks, and Guns is like talking him through the whole thing. Comes back to the squadron, and I've never seen him more excited for that guy. And it's like, man, like you might not ever get that opportunity again in your entire career. Right. And you just gave it to the newest guy in the squadron. You talked him through it, and you gave him all the credit when you got back. It was amazing. Like, it's something that you do not find. It's very rare to find, like, in any squadron. Someone that is that humble and that empowers everyone around him. So really, like, as the foundation, we want to have that. We want to embody that. Like, we want to make those around us better, and we want to help those who are really going through a hard time.
Yeah, that's you. So Guns, he passed away in 2020. You guys quickly stepped up to the plate to do something. Can you talk to me kind of like the early days with the foundation and what the thought process was and what the direction you guys were trying to head?
Sure. I mean, you know, when something like this happens, I think, you know, obviously initially it's shock, right? It wasn't something that was expected. It wasn't something we'd known about for months or anything. It was obviously incredibly sudden. So initially it was like, I don't even know what to do. You know, it was for us, it was initially just trying to take care of his family, you know, Kelly and the girls. And then, you know, I feel like as a unit, we are very close knit. And there was a lot of people taking care of the family and, you know, and doing whatever part that we could. I mean, we had people going out to do yard work, you know, just simple things like that. But, you know, a couple days had passed, you know, while we're trying to figure out how to celebrate his life. And then one of the things that Croc and I kind of sat down, we're like, we need to do something. We feel like there's more or something that we can do. I don't even know what that is. Yeah. You know, there was a GoFundMe that had gotten started, which again, it was all a matter of, we don't know what the need is yet, but we're going to do something. And then we kind of wanted to do, again, just more than that. So our initial vision, based off of our past, you know, we talked about doing some fundraisers in the past for different organizations, and you know, with my brother kind of having some success with that, we were like, maybe this is an opportunity to do something, and we don't necessarily even have a vision for it yet, but let's do something. And you know, so that we decided, like, well, maybe we'll do a golf tournament. Like, he loved to golf. We played golf with him all the time, you know, and what could be a better way than that to kind of get everybody together to do something that he always loved to do outside of flying. And you know, so then we kind of scrambled at that point, because, you know, we're like, well, it takes a while to plan a golf tournament. You got to reserve the course. You got to, like, right, you know, see if we can get donations from, you know, from food vendors or whatever we can do. And so it was kind of a scramble, and we were so much effort focused on that we still didn't really kind of have a vision at that point. So, but that didn't kind of stop us or whatnot. We were like, let's just do the best that we can. And, you know, Michael was so gracious to be a part of it. He was like, absolutely. Like, I remember Guns meeting him up in Charlotte at a tournament, you know, and he's like, this is, you know, something we've kind of talked about doing, some sort of, you know, charitable organization. And we were like, this is it. Maybe this is where we need to go. And, and that kind of started it. And we had the first tournament, and the outpouring of support, you know, it was amazing to a certain degree, also not unexpected based off of who Guns was. But it was great. And we were like, okay, we did that. Like, we're not going to stop. So then it just kind of, the momentum was going. And then we were like, well, okay, well, now we have raised some money. Well, now what do we do with it? You know, and our initial reaction was, we want to take care of other people that are in the same situation that Kelly was in. You know, obviously Kelly was on board, and she was like, this is what I want this to be. And that's how it started. And
a lot of that, the cool part about that is a lot of that was, so we deployed pretty quick after he passed away.
Right.
And a lot of that was born during that deployment.
You guys were in the spin up to go.
Yeah. And he was actually the one leading that deployment as well. So, I mean, we deployed pretty quick after that, and we're sitting there, like, you know, in the middle of the desert saying, like, how can we make this something that lasts? And really, I think the vision for what it is today was born out of the need. Like the need of military members and veterans being taken care of during hard times is never going to go away.
Right.
It was probably the first real thing that we had encountered where it really, really hit home, because you hear stories all the time.
Right.
But it's like, man, like this sucks. Like, we don't want anyone to have to go through something like this by themselves.
Yeah, alone, not at all.
The need's never going to go away. So the vision is like, as long as the need exists, like, we're going to exist to help take care of those people.
So talk to me as the foundation kind of formed, what the pillars became of what you guys were going to do. And I know it's probably still evolving, because this is still relatively fresh. And you guys went out the gate sprinting,
Right.
in my opinion, and it's phenomenal to see what you've accomplished. But can you talk to me about what is the foundation specifically focused on, and how do they help people?
Yeah, and so our two core values are again, we tied it back to who Guns was. So, taking care of people was something that was important to him, building relationships and making sure people were taken care of. So we serve veterans and military members and their families in times of need. So whether it's like a tragic loss, whether they're just struggling to buy groceries for the month, whether they are dealing with mental health issues, we step in and basically we commit financial aid and help in that way. And then we also we provide aviation scholarships to help kids that don't have the means to learn how to fly. We give them scholarships to help achieve their goals of one day becoming a pilot. So we've given out a little over 10 scholarships, taking kids from broken families that, financially can't afford, aviation's not cheap.
No, yeah, for sure.
And being able to financially support them has been really cool. So the aviation piece to make sure his legacy as a fighter pilot lives on, and then the financial aid to veterans and their families are the two main things we're focused on.
I know coming down the pipe too, I think there's also a focus on veterans' mental health. That's an initiative you guys are also bringing into the fold. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're, again, you talked about like the evolution of who we are and what the foundation is. It's, we feel like as we continue to grow and have successes, it's like, again, what can we do more that aligns with kind of the core values of what we stand for with respect to essentially military veteran aid and then aviation. And so one of our big things that we've kind of decided over the last couple of months is that as we look into the next years, that we want to focus on basically mental health in the military and veteran community. I would contend that most people would agree that it's a huge need, and it's, there's a lot of other initiatives out there that are kind of raising awareness about it, and we want to do something about it. So we've been fortunate to kind of, work with some other organizations, specifically Elevation Church has reached out to us, and we've reached out to them to kind of get after this together. But we want to commit $100,000 this next year to that initiative, to basically care for the veterans and the military members that either don't know how, or maybe are reaching out but not quite getting what they need, to make sure that we're taking care of people who need mental health help.
And Rain, like the interesting thing about being in this space has been, we didn't necessarily know what the needs were.
Yeah.
You do a lot of, as a, especially a fighter pilot, but as a military member in general, you do like a lot of coping. Like you just, hey, this isn't the most ideal situation, but like I'm going to like deal with it and still do my job, and I'm going to do a good job. And so it's hard to identify needs within a community that is just used to always coping and dealing with like bad situations. And so the mental health portion of what we're doing really came up based off of that being a need that people were coming to us and saying like, we're struggling with this. And so we as a foundation said, okay, like if this is something that like military members need help with, like we as a foundation are going to support that. So that mental health initiative falls underneath just overall helping veterans and their families. So that's a portion of how we're going to try and do that. And if in the future, like if in later this year, there's another need that comes up that we're not covering right now. We're going to pivot and broaden our aperture and say, okay, like that's going to be part of how we take care of people.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to see just the impact you've already had in such a short time span. And then also, I know fighter pilots are used to solving complex problems, but it's something as simple as you mentioning, like not knowing what the need is. Like there's not a list out there saying like, oh, well, I put money here and that solves that problem. People, I mean, not that they all suffer in silence, but if someone can't pay their grocery bill or lose debt, it typically leaning on just the immediate people around them, which again might not have the resources to help them out. So figuring out like how do you help? Like again, I was like, how would you start that? So I know you guys have gone through and done a tremendous amount of work to make that happen. But if someone, how do they find the foundation and how do they get involved?
Sure. I mean, well, you know, one of the things that we first started, we was like, well, how do we tell people who we are?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, we initially made a website, kind of let it expand from there, but you can go to gunsgarin.com. That's our website. There are links on there to click to either get in contact with us in some variety form, reach out to us, and whether that means you want to donate or you want to shop for some awesome, you know, items that we have that obviously the money will go to helping others. Contacting us for any aid that you need, volunteering, any of that, that's all via the website. And then you can obviously follow us. All of our handles on everything is at Guns Garin. So on Instagram, and then we've got a YouTube channel on Facebook as well to find out, you know, what we're doing and what's going on and how to help. And you know, we are obviously trying to make as much of an effort to get our name out there so that way people know that we are out there. You know, we can help. So
yeah, I think it's important people, if they need help, to be able to go somewhere and reach out and encourage people to go do that. And also people who want to just be a part of something. And it can be something as simple as just being a recurring donor each month. I think I probably have taken for granted, like I typically do like a one lump sum donation to these variety of charities. But I also realize with my podcast, the importance I have Patreon supporters that support the podcast, and it's a monthly donation, but it helps cover all the admin costs.
Right.
But just doing a simple donation can have a big impact in someone's life that is going through potentially the worst period in their life or a very tough hardship, just by, again, going there and doing a recurring donation.
Yeah, I mean, you wish you could say like, hey, I know when bad things are going to happen in life, and I can, at that point, I can reach out to my supporters and get contributions to help, you know, these needs that I know are planned. But that's not the way life works. Like we have no idea when someone's going to reach out, and so the consistency of a monthly donor really gives us the flexibility to be able to help these people quickly. And that's something we're trying to do. We're trying to stay, you know, very grassroots in the fact that like if you reach out for help, there's you know, a $5,000 check that's sent in your mail 2 days later. And there's very few organizations out there that can provide that that level of care to people when you're dealing with someone that's a little bit that's a bigger organization. It might take like a full application process to then, you know, a month later a check shows up. You know, most of our recipients and people that we help have the financial aid in hand within 48 hours.
You guys are at the level where you have resources, but you guys are it. And I know there's a handful of other people helping out, but being the decision makers, being able to quickly process information and make decisions, which we often find, you know, coming from other worlds. Sure. As organizations grow, there's more red tape and there's more bureaucracy and there's more people that have to get involved. It just slows things down.
Right.
So it's, again, being out here, I see the impact, literally, you know, in front of my face, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's a valuable lesson we've learned. There's nothing that you can't put a price tag on being able to build relationships with people, and you can't fake that either. And so that's who Guns was, and that's like who we were trying to be. Like the people that we help, like we genuinely are building relationships with them. Some of them are out here at our golf tournament. Like they want to be a part of what we're doing at the arguably probably the worst time in their life.
Absolutely. Going
through a horrible situation. They see that like this is genuinely an organization that's out there to help people get through those tough times. So it's a cool community that I think we've been able to build just in 2 years.
Yeah, it's huge. Croc, Baldy, I really appreciate you guys letting me come out here and capture some of Guns' story and tell about the foundation. Before we wrap up here, is there anything you'd like to say?
I'd encourage people to think about becoming a monthly donor. Follow us at Guns Garin, and you can visit our website, see what we're doing. We update that routinely, so stay connected with who we are and what we're doing.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.